Welcome to the Layman's Christianity Podcast, a practical perspective on Christian belief. Thank you so much for joining us on the Layman's Christianity Podcast today. My name is Luke, and I am so happy you're listening in. Today we are talking about two things that are very important to me. We're going to be talking about music and then also the term worship. How do Christians define both of those terms? And then I also want to talk about my own personal passions and interests with both music and worship. But first, before I define the difference of those two terms, we need to know the basic definitions of both. So what is music? Music is expression of the combination of sounds. So music usually entails a beat, a melody, which is like the tune of the music, and the harmonies, which back up the main melodies of the song. That's not how all music is, but that's just kind of a basic outline of most typical songs you hear on the radio or anywhere. Now, what is worship? Worship, it is an expression of reverence and adoration to a deity. So both music and worship are expression, but how are they different? I'd say that music has a specific way of expression for a wider range of purposes, while worship has a wider range of expression for a specific purpose. I'm going to say that again. Music has a specific way of expression for a wider range of purposes, while worship has a wider range of expression for a specific purpose. So with the breakdown of the definition of those two words, I want to talk a little bit about how Christians define them and where there's some misunderstandings. So if you've ever been to a church service, you might hear terms like, our worship service starts at 10 o'clock, or our worship pastor is great at singing, or let's sing some worship songs. And like I said before, there is a very big difference between the specific expression of music and then the wide expression of worship. Yet it seems like in the Christian culture, the Christian world, people are starting to combine them by saying worship and music go together. And they do. I am not saying they don't. I think worship in church with songs is a great thing. But there is a danger in binding both music and worship and music. Because I can sing any worship songs, which are songs typically used in church services for the purpose of corporate or community worship times. And while I'm singing those worship songs, I could do it without being worshipful, without being reverent, or trying to show my thankfulness to God. But I can also do something completely different. I could play or sing a song that isn't a typical Christian song, that might not even mention God at all. And I could be doing it in a worshipful way, because worship is not bound to a specific musical expression. And that is the rub. That's where Christians, when they hear the term worship, get confused, because they instantly go to music. For myself, on my own journey with music and worship, I've had a lot of time to reflect on what worship looks like for me specifically, what it looks like congregationally or communally. And I think I would say that the two biggest ways that I've worshiped in my life have been through music and through nature. When I say music, I don't mean just Sunday songs, Christian songs, worship songs. I mean specifically just the piano. I've been playing piano for, I don't know, I am 23, so I was probably 4, so a long time, almost 20 years, not quite 20 years. And throughout my whole journey playing on the piano, I haven't really been that into singing and playing Christian songs per se, but listening to a beautiful song I might have heard on a movie or on the radio and just repeating it on the piano, enjoying the process of playing beautiful things. And because of that, I've had an attitude of worship because I am thankful, I am grateful, I am enjoying something that God has given me to do. I'm expressing myself through the piano, and I'm looking to God because I'm doing something He has given me and showing my thankfulness to Him. Another huge part of my journey with worship has also been just going out into nature. I used to run a lot. I used to do a lot of hikes. I used to live in a place out east a little bit in the mountains, and because of it, I was basically in nature. My back door was in nature. I could go out on any sort of walk in any direction, and I was in nature. And in those times, I could worship because I wasn't singing, I was walking. I was just looking around and enjoying creation. And then I would express myself through prayer or just through joy that I am enjoying the process of being in nature. And as a Christian, I believe that God has created everything, including nature, including the piano, including music. And because of that, I've been able to express myself with gratitude with those things. So as I said before, worship should not be bound by music, nor music worship. So if you are a Christian and you do not feel like worship on a Sunday with music really connects with you, don't worry. You don't have to be bound to that. I would say that it is a good thing to connect with, and it's a good thing to be a part of, to worship as a community, as a church body, which is the community of Christians. However, if you do not feel that connection, you have many options to worship. Worship is not just one thing that you do. It is everything you do. At this moment, you could be worshiping. You could be looking on the internet on pictures of beautiful paintings or something, and you could be worshiping. You could be resting. You could be taking a nap, and you could be saying to yourself, I love rest. I am grateful for rest. I am thankful that God gives me rest. And because of that, you are worshiping. Worshiping is not bound to a specific thing. So whatever you do, worship. Think about it in that mindset that worship is something that could be your whole entire life's ambition. It doesn't have to be bound to specific times, specific places, specific things. I hope that if you aren't a Christian, this has at least been educational, giving you a glimpse into how a Christian thinks when it comes to worship, how they might have some misconceptions about worship, and then also ways they can worship that aren't bound just to musical expression. I'm going to leave you with a final analogy that will tie things together just a little bit. Say a father gives his son or daughter a piece of paper and a pen because the father feels that it would be a good way for his son or daughter to express their creativity. So he gives it to them, and then they walk off into some corner of the house and sit down and start drawing. And they get so enthralled with it and they enjoy it so much. Do you think that the father is upset because he gave them something and then they walked away and got engrossed in it and not engrossed in him? I don't think so. I think the father in that moment is so overjoyed that he had the chance to give his son or daughter something that lets them tap into a part of their nature. And if God, who created everyone, has given us something to do, and we do it with joyfulness, with happiness, with just creativity, whatever way you express yourself, maybe productivity, maybe hard work, whatever it is, if you do that because God has given you that, don't you think he's excited and happy just to see you expressing yourself in the way that He designed you. I think that's a good thing to just think about for a while as you stop this podcast. Just how am I expressing myself with the things God has given me? Well, that's all I have, folks. Thank you so much for listening in to this episode of the Layman's Christianity podcast. If you really enjoyed this video, feel free to like the page. If you like this channel, feel free to subscribe so you can hear more in the future. I hope that today is a day that you can express yourself to God to honor Him. Thanks.